And when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, while others said, "We will hear you again on this matter." Acts 17, verse 32. Paul's address to the philosophers of Athens on Mars Hill is one of the greatest examples of Christian courage in all of history. Paul on Mars Hill, at the very center and abode of Greek culture, assuring representatives of the leading schools of thought in the most enlightened city of the world that a crucified Jew came out of his grave, and that God has appointed that Jew to be the judge of all mankind, is the highest exhibition of heroism which the book of Acts records. Paul's act that day was one of the most daring strokes ever stroked by man in the entire history of the human race at that time. It takes more courage for an educated man of refined sensibilities to affront the intelligence of a cultivated audience than to give offense to ignorant peasants whose powers of reasoning are undeveloped, and whose intellectual judgments are of little account. The fury of the mob in Lystria was no such test of courage as the cold ridicule of the critical scholars in Athens. The contemptuous laugh of those who lorded over the culture Paul never forgot. He never went back to Athens. He wrote no letters to the Athenians. For weeks after this Athenian experience, he was weak in his body and depressed in spirit, but his courage was unabated. He determined to go on preaching that Jesus is the Messiah, and that man was crucified, and that God raised him from the dead. Here is a courage like unto the courage of the Son of God. Paul's work in Athens did not result in the establishment of a church. Athens wasn't that kind of city. But one of the judges who listened that day did become a Christian. This, in itself, was phenomenal. Those who endeavor to witness for Christ before the learned, the influential, and the sophisticated can emulate Paul's tact and courage. And in every culture, persons like Dionysius, the Areopagite, have responded to the claims of Christ. They are hard to find and harder to reach, but God loves them and He's commissioned His church to preach His gospel to them. And as always, think on these things.